So first of all, a very warm welcome to those of you who are watching and listening to this. My name is Mahashada and I work for the Biorat Trust. Now, to date, we have been in conversation with Vilasini, who has dementia, Diachita, who has a rare condition called pure automatic failure or PAF, and Buddha who has multiple sclerosis. And today I'm in conversation with Miles, a Mitra who's asked ordination from Worcester. So, Miles, a really warm welcome to you. I know we've spoken a couple of times leading up to this interview, and yeah, I've just been really impressed with you, and I'm delighted that we're having this conversation. And may our conversation today bring benefits not just to you, Miles, but also to many people. So I'd like to begin, Miles, by asking you just to give a bit of an introduction to yourself, please.
Firstly, I'd just like to say thank you for the opportunity to talk about this, Mahashada. It's a great initiative, and I really hope it helps people.
Yes, thank you. So do I.
So I have a type of motor neurone disease, which is called primary lateral sclerosis, and motor neurone disease is a terribly debilitating and normally very, very fast-acting disease that most normally paralyzes people and in more than 50% of cases kills people within 3 years of diagnosis. However, for my part, luckily for me, there's a spectrum of motor neurone disease, and I'm right down the slow acting end of the spectrum. Primary lateral sclerosis accounts for only about 2% of motor neurone disease cases. There are actually about just less than the lifetime risk of getting motor neurone disease is just less than the lifetime risk of getting multiple sclerosis. Although more people have heard of multiple sclerosis because there's a lot more people alive at any one time with it, because MND sadly acts much more quickly, with people more quickly. But so I'm very lucky in the sense that mine's very, very slow acting, and is like it will lead to more. It will lead to me getting more disabled. It causes spasticity of the muscles, tightness of the muscles, which started in my legs. So my mobility is the most seriously affected thing at the moment. So I can't walk very far, and I use a mobility scooter quite a lot, and it sadly, I hope not in my case, but in the majority of cases, affects people's speech and causes people to lose the ability to speak. Most people I've met with primary lateral sclerosis have their speech has been quite badly affected. Mine's only slightly affected at the moment, thankfully. Yeah, it doesn't cause the muscle wasting that you get with the most common type of motor neurone disease, which is called amyotrophic lateral sclerosis. But it does cause, as I said, stiffness, spasticity, and quite a lot. It causes quite a lot of pain because there's cramps associated with the muscle tightness. So, yeah, yeah.
Thank you, Miles. Sorry to interrupt. Thanks, Miles. And you came across the tree retina, or the FWO as it was called, in 1998 by the Birmingham Buddhist Centre, and then you moved eventually to Worcester.
Went to the Birmingham Buddhist Centre back in 1998. and also started going to outreach classes at Worcester, which was where I lived. Um, yeah, and yeah, and have and I'm back. I'm back with Turat now. I did have a short gap, a gap of quite a few years in between, where I tried a couple of other schools of Buddhism and carried on practicing, but in different schools. And I've been back with Turat for the last 8 years, and asked for ordination about 3 years ago. Um, and go to Padmaloka for my training for ordination retreats. Yeah, so you were asking about what helps on the
Mm.
trip. I think what really helps, and what actually all the retreat centres that I've been to do, is they ask in advance whether there's anything that they need to know
Mm.
about your specific circumstance,
Mm. Mm.
and and that's fantastic. And actually, in Sri Lanka, I've found that um, the retreat centres get back to you if they have any questions.
Mm. Mm.
Ask specifically in more detail what they could do to help, which is really useful because it makes you feel like they're on your side.
Mm.
Um,
Mm.
but I have in the past,
Mm.
with another Buddhist group, another tradition, was told that a centre was accessible. When I arrived, I found that to get to the registration office, you had to go down a steep flight of steps, and there was no other
Mm.
point to get to it.
Mm.
So I've not experienced anything like that in Sri Lanka, thankfully. People are very open to helping. What I do have found though is that because um, a lot of the retreat centres that I specifically Padmaloka, um, which um, has been in existence, I think, for 50 years, isn't it? No, something like that. Um, in the 60s or 70s, I can't remember exactly when it was founded. But it could personally find that there's certain things about going to Padmaloka that are quite difficult for somebody with mobility issues. Um, the gravel paths, which I understand are good for security, are not actually great for getting around if you're in a wheelchair or on a mobility scooter.
Mm. Yeah.
And there's a few other things there. That's but the guys that run the place are really very helpful, and their attitude is a helpful attitude. Um, it's just the some of the practicalities can, can be can be difficult for people who are disabled.
Mm. Yeah, because one thing we've talked about is it's not just the admin of the retreat centres, if you like, it's retreatants themselves in it. So you mentioned an example of work rotas, being feeling uncomfortable that you can't actually contribute as you'd like to, and as others are contributing.
Yeah, well, I always really enjoyed being on the work races because it makes you feel a part of the community, and you develop friendships and
Yeah,
connections with people.
yeah.
I'm actually quite sad when I have to say on the form that I'm asking to go on retreat that I can't guarantee that I'll be able to do what's asked of me
Mm.
work
Mm.
race. So I actually now ask not to be put on the work rate
Mm.
to
Mm.
say that I'll help out in whatever
Mm.
ways I can
Mm.
when I'm there if I see that something needs
Mm.
doing.
Mm.
And there is it's coming from me, but there is a psychological
Mm.
um, sort of
Mm.
stigma there for me
Mm.
because I've always wanted to help.
Mm.
I've always wanted to get involved
Mm.
with.
Mm.
So
Mm.
so there's always there is a part of me that thinks, well, should I be on the work rota? And when I see the work rota up on the wall at the retreat centre, I look at it and I'm like scanning it, thinking, is there anything there that I could do? In fact, on one of a retreat I went on recently, I did actually share one of the things on the work rota with a friend. Um, I did the lighter duties, and she ended up she had to clean the toilets because I can't bend. One of the things that I can't do is bend easily. It gives me a lot of pain. So I can't, sadly, I can't do normal household chores.
But I think that's a really important point, and maybe something which people haven't thought about. Well, I hadn't, for example, until we discussed it, that actually chores are part of being the spiritual community. Yeah, there's communication, there's a sense of a shared task, and I'm wondering if that could be made known at the beginning of the retreat, that you can't do work, and then people can kind of keep an eye on you more to compensate for that lack of experience of spiritual community in work periods.
Well, I think yeah, I think what I have done is sort of kind of almost keep it as quiet as possible, but
Right, yeah.
perhaps should be much more open about it.
Sure.
So I do remember once looking at the work rota, and somebody next to me said, "Oh, how many tasks have you signed up for?" Because they weren't sure whether to sign up for
Yeah.
2 or 3. And I said, "Actually, I haven't signed up for any." And they sort of gave me a sideways look because I was sort of standing there with, I had with a crutch, and I looked perfectly healthy. And I just, I didn't really think that much of it, but it's that can make you feel awkward, that sort of situation. But it being open at the front, at the top, I mean, I'd be quite happy if there was something next to the work rotas that had my name in it, that said that I, for health reasons, I wasn't involved in them.
Okay, yeah. That's another way of doing it, isn't it? I mean, obviously, whatever action was taken, you'd have to be comfortable with that. Yeah. Great. Well, thanks, Miles. Thank you for your openness. Being open about being so open about that as well. Thank you. So, can I ask you another question?
Yeah, go ahead.
I won't try and cut out big swathes of your life in the next question. So, is this the and we've spoken about this as well with real interest. What is your source of inspiration in your Dharma life? What is your primary practice given your condition? And I was very moved by this part of the conversation when you spoke about a practice. So could you say something about that? Mindfulness, for example.
Yeah, I try to keep my practice as simple as possible. And so I find mindfulness really helps me. It was mindfulness practice that brought me back into Triratna, the breathworks course, and that was at Birmingham Buddhist Centre, and that was just before I was diagnosed, when I was having real health problems and difficulties, but I hadn't been diagnosed. And being at the centre and talking to people was what brought me back into the Sangha, really. And so mindfulness brought me back into Triratna, and I get great pleasure, great enjoyment, if that's the right word, out of the mindfulness of breathing. And although I try not to look into the future with regards to my health, because that can be quite a frightening thing, but I am aware that as long as I'm still breathing, I can still practice the mindfulness of breathing, and it gives me such a connection to being alive and being connected with everything around me and with other beings, that it's a huge reassurance in my life, that no matter what happens, um, as long as I'm still breathing, as long as I'm still alive, there is that practice that I can rely on. So that is, I think, my primary practice. Um, I also find using mindfulness really helps me if I'm in pain, because um, especially if I'm meditating and I have some pain, even quite bad pain, I can if I concentrate on it and I notice the sensations, it kind of seems to dissociate it from the sort of personal fact that it's my body that it's happening to, and it becomes an experience, and through experiencing it as a sensation, then I actually find that concentrating on the pain can actually send me into dhyana, and 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 quite often the pain will diminish, if not go completely, when that happens, which I find amazing. You know,
Yeah. Thanks, Miles. I think you really open out some really interesting dimensions of the possibilities of mindfulness. And I was just wondering if that has arisen from, trying to practice meditation with your condition. I mean, do you think those kind of insights would have arisen without practicing with your condition?
I think my condition has helped me go deeper with my practice.
Yeah.
And I'm so relieved that I started practicing before I got my condition, um, because I had a solid practice before all this turmoil in my life. And but it's it's definitely enabled me, been a trigger for me to go deeper with the practice. It's certainly caused me to reflect on the actioners more deeply, and it's. I mean, I can only walk really slowly, and a practice that I do sometimes is I will drive my car to somewhere quiet, and I'll just get out and walk really slowly. And it's a matter of walking 20 yards and then stopping, and resting, and then walking a little bit more. But walking really slowly and just being aware of my feet on the ground, and my breathing. And I can only walk like that if I try to walk faster. If I try to walk to get from A to B like we normally do, then I end up hurting a lot. So if I walk really slowly, the pain's diminished, and if I walk mindfully, the pain is diminished, and it can even walking mindfully can actually, more often than not, is a very pleasurable experience. Just walking a very short distance, and, and walking slowly, and just being aware of what bits of my body are tight and what are not, and just that physical awareness brings an aliveness and a connection with everything. And I've had some really beautiful experiences of feeling connected, connecting just with nature and everything that there is around. A bit like if you've been on retreat for several days, but it happens just over a period of a few minutes.
Yeah, it's so delightful speaking to you about your practice, Miles. I mean, what flows from you is just joy and real pleasure from from almost an enforced, focus on mindfulness. You can do. I've been struck with that on the previous occasion that we've spoken. This joy which seems to flow from you quite naturally when you speak about practice. I'm sure you make a great teacher at your local centre, which does actually bring me on to how do you find it being in your local sangha or centre or group, as in Worcester, soon to be a centre, all being well. Do you feel as though you get the support you need to do what you want to do, for example?
Yeah, I get a lot of support. It's especially over recent months. It's become a really supportive group, supportive sangha with people of a lot of different levels of experience. From people there's a friend of mine who's just come back from spending 18 months living at Adisthana. She's now back living locally in Worcester again. And we've got people who have just come off doing introductory classes, who are really enthusiastic. We tend to get 2, 3 or 4 people from each introductory class that continue coming, and out of those, 1 or 2 seem to be really enthusiastic and come every week, and are asking questions, discussions about how to best make use of their practice and how to develop themselves. And the people with more experience are really helping them, and it's a lovely atmosphere. And as far as supporting me is concerned, yeah, I get I've got a very close friendship with Nabaya, who's the chair of it, and he's really supportive, and we've had some quite deep conversations about practicing with my health, and I think he'd say he's become more aware of issues surrounding disability and access and so on. And he's offered to, for example, to go to Vajraloka with me to check out whether we're around and things like that. So he's extremely supportive, and I mean I find the responsibility of leading classes can be slightly daunting. If I'm having a day when I've not got much energy, then it absolutely, afterwards I can be absolutely floored, to be honest. So I do need to have the backup of 1 or 2 people there with me. I don't enjoy the responsibility of leading the class on my own. Have I done that? Have I actually done that? And he said, I probably haven't actually. I think so. Yeah, cut that. I love leading classes where there's a couple of us and we're bouncing ideas off each other and getting people to participate. I do find it tiring, and there were a group of four mitras who relaunched Worcester because about just over a year ago, a year and a half to 2 years ago, we relaunched the centre, and I made us a new website, and it got us a lot more interest. There was a huge, off the back of COVID, I think, there was a huge amount of interest in wanting to come to learn how to meditate and learn about Buddhism, and so we got large numbers through the door, and the 4 of us were running the group together. But then, for various reasons, like, a couple of people going to live at retreat centres and other reasons. It ended up with me being the last of the 4 mitras left. So there was myself and Nibaya sort of leading things, and I did feel a bit of pressure then. I had to step up a bit because it was quite, well, it's tiring. I mean, you have to be on the ball to. But it's also a great learning experience because when you get asked a question that you don't know the answer, there's nothing. You know, you make sure that you go away and find out what the answer is afterwards.
It's great, and as I say, I'm sure you're a great teacher, and you've obviously adapted to your condition. It was, over a period of time, and in many ways you're flourishing. Your practice of mindfulness is really impressive, and as I say, I'm sure you're doing a really good job teaching. So, sadhu, Miles, sadhu.
Thank you.
Okay, well, I think there's many more things we could talk about, but that's probably enough for now. Well, thank you, Miles. I just want to say thank you very much and for being open to this. Thank you very much indeed, and thank you very much for your openness. Thank you very much for inspiring us with the joyfulness of mindfulness, the joy of mindfulness. That's what I was trying to say. Yeah. So thank you, and good luck with everything. Good luck with everything, Miles.
Well, thanks for the opportunity. Yeah.
Thank you very much.